Shalom Havarim, and hello friends. It is good to be with you here on this, the fourth Sunday of Advent. As you can see behind me, we have been marking the weeks off until the arrival of Jesus, the Christ child. We have been lighting a candle each week as we anticipate his arrival. And today we light the fourth and final candle. We only light that white candle in the middle that you can barely see there in the bottom of the screen. We only light that on Christmas Eve. That is the Christ candle, signifying that Jesus has come into the world. But today we are still in the waiting period. And we are going to talk about the Annunciation today. Annunciation is just a fancy way of saying that the angel Gabriel came and announced to Mary that she was going to bear a child and she would name him Jesus. So today we're going to look at Mary and her reaction to this story. And I'm going to call her the archetype of Christian faith. Now, archetype is a fancy word. It simply means the first example. Like we are supposed to base our experience on what Mary has here in this story. So we're going to see how Mary moves from this period of questioning to trust and finally resulting in joy. So let's go over this story again real quick. In Luke's gospel, we read that the angel Gabriel shows up and announces to Mary. He tells her that she is going to give birth to Jesus. Now the text also tells us some very important details here. The text tells us that Mary was betrothed to Joseph. She was engaged to be married to a different man. It also goes into details. It says that she was a virgin. And sometimes it's like, well, that's not my business, but it really is important detail here. So Mary is engaged and she has not yet been with a man. So this is what angel Gabriel says in verses 30 through 31. And let me just stop there for a second and say, wouldn't life be so much easier if angels would just show up and explain things to us, like lay it out for me. But this is a challenging detail here. He says, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And now you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you will name him Jesus." So Mary begins questioning this angel because this doesn't happen, right? This is the first time that she speaks in this passage. It says, "How can this be since I am a virgin?" So she's asking really good questions here. She knows this is not the way things work. She's not done what is necessary to produce a child. So she questions the angel. And I say it's only natural to ask those kind of questions when somebody is telling you something that doesn't line up with your lived experiences. Mary was only 13 years old or so at the time, and she knew that that's not the way it works. So she asks questions. It reminds me of that spray painting on the overpass on the road, where people write things like "question everything." And I heard a story once about how somebody had written "question everything" on this overpass, and somebody else had come along and written the word "why" right beside it. But it's natural when things don't line up with your experience to ask questions, and that's okay. Think about it like this. I believe that a homeless Jew named Jesus was born of a virgin, that he lived a perfect life, that he died for my sins, that he was raised again from the death to life, and now he reigns as king. I mean, what if that makes sense? Of course, that's not the way things work around us. So it makes sense that people would have questions. Why do you believe that? Why? And what makes you think that is normal? So think about it like this. When Mary asks the angel, "How is this going to happen?" The angel doesn't say, "Forget you. You don't have enough faith. We're going to go find the next person." No, he doesn't say never mind and dismiss her. What he does is he takes the time to explain to her what's really going on here. But notice that Mary then changes. She goes from this time of questioning to this acceptance of this truth. She moves towards this faith and belief. And she says, "Here I am, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." And then the angel departed. Such poise, such faith, such confidence in the Lord. I mean, again, she's like 13 years old, and my oldest child is going to be 11 years old next month, and 13 is sounding younger and younger all the time. But here she is, standing up and saying, "Here I am, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." You have to think she knew that the next 9 months, perhaps the next 30 years, were going to be very difficult for her. She had to then go and tell Joseph what had happened. "Joseph, I have some news. I'm pregnant." Yeah. How's he going to take that? Thankfully, Joseph had a message from the Lord as well. But what about Mary's parents? How many times do you read about Mary's parents in the Bible? Tradition tells us that they had names. Tradition tells us that they were named Anne and Joachim. Anne and Joachim are never named in the Bible. In fact, we find out that after this experience with the angel, Mary had to go and live with her cousin Elizabeth for a period of time. This was not easy for Mary. But yet there she is, saying, "Here I am, the servant of the Lord. Let it be with me according to your word." So that little phrase, "let it be," I think that's really important. And yes, for those of you who are wondering, that is where the Beatles got their song title from, "Let It Be." But others will note that this right here seems to be where Jesus is getting a message that he shares later in his ministry. I say that like mother, like son. She probably taught him a few things along the way. And he also shared her genetics as well. Half of his genetics came from Mary, half come from God, something like that. I don't know how it works. But note that when Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane, he follows that same path. He goes from questioning to trust. Jesus prays, "May this cup pass from me." He's like, "God, if this is not your will, if there's any other way that it could happen, let's go that route." Jesus is asking these questions. And then how does he end? He says, "But not my will, but yours be done." This movement from questioning to trust. So when Mary says, "Let it be," I hear her saying, "God, you can use me as your vessel. God, work through me," giving him permission to fill her womb with the Christ child. Knowing that it will not be easy for her, she gives God this permission. And this is why I see Mary as this archetype of Christianity, because she makes this movement from questioning to trust. And after she is able to trust in God, that God is going to do this and do it right, she ends with joy. She goes from questioning to trust, from "how can it be" to "let it be." And at the end of this chapter, Mary sings. She sings a song of praise, a song of joy. My friends, on this, the fourth and final Sunday of Advent, I want to just once again tell you it's okay to have questions. It's okay to not know how all of this works. And I'm not just talking about theological questions. I'm talking about everything that happens in this world. It's okay to have your questions. It's okay to ask God questions. Because when things don't line up, when they don't make sense, if they don't match up with your lived experience, questioning is the natural response. So like Mary and like Jesus, seek out others and ask questions. Seek to know more. Learn from people who have lived longer than you have, that have been walking this path for longer than you have, and ask them those difficult questions. And hopefully we can move from a time of questioning to a time of trust. And like Mary, hopefully we end in a period of joy. All right, my friends, have a wonderful Christmas, and remember to keep loving one another.